Welcome to Holy Heartbeats. My name is Nathan, and I narrate Christ-centered testimonies from all over the world. These testimonies include rapture and end times visions, near-death experiences, encounters with angels and demons, God, Jesus, and even Satan himself. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you are fond of listening to these types of stories, and let me know what you think about these testimonies in the comments section below. Furthermore, for those who want to share their personal testimonies, visions, and revelations from God, you can send us your own stories at holyheartbeat7@gmail.com. I will be very honored to read your testimony, which may inspire, edify, and encourage a lot of people in their personal journey of faith with the Lord Jesus Christ.
A number of churches with the Masonic Knights Templar logo on the side of their churches.
And what logo is that?
It's a cross and a crown.
Cross and crown.
Right.
Okay.
It's a particular, it's designed a certain way, and it's very clear that it's a Masonic symbol. And there's a lot of other symbols. I've seen all-seeing eyes. There's Catholic churches that have the Illuminati all-seeing eye, that's in the pyramid.
Well, speaking of the all-seeing eye, our local cable outlet...
The subject is so vast and so incredible that it's really difficult to absorb. That's why I really strongly encourage someone to begin by reading the Bloodlines of the Illuminati book, where I have the time to lay things out systematically, so you can see that this thing started in antiquity. These people controlled everything back then. They never gave up control, although they have worked through trade guilds and the Masonic Lodge and other things. They've always had the power. They never gave up the power. And when this country was created, we thought that we were getting away from the aristocracies and the kings of Europe. But lo and behold, like I said, I can document that 11 of our presidents are related to the royal family in the United Kingdom.
The Collins bloodline. The next family in our series on the top 13 Illuminati families is the Collins family. The first two covered were the Astor and Bundy families, which were fairly straightforward to research. Much has already been written about them, and I found more information than I needed. However, the Collins family presents a different challenge, as information about them is scarce. This article contains both solid connections and speculative links. Joan Collins, for instance, is a speculative link due to her associations with key Illuminati figures and a few known Satanists, though this evidence alone does not confirm her involvement. Let's begin with the more concrete connections. A highly secretive Satanic meeting from 1955 was described by an ex-insider turned Christian. This biannual meeting was attended by the Rothschilds and other key Illuminati families. The meeting was presided over by the Grande Mother, who was a Collins. This family has reportedly remained out of the spotlight due to their substantial occult power, which some claim surpasses even that of the Rothschilds or Rockefellers. The Collins family is said to be financially active, often in insurance, a sector purportedly tied to New World Order (NWO) control. The grandmother sat on an ebony and gold moon-shaped throne capable of rotating with a foot pedal. During the meeting, discussions focused on global events aimed at ushering in Satan's one-world government. The Ark of the Covenant was also mentioned, including its alleged location in Africa, and rituals mocking its significance. At this same meeting, 7 children from generational satanic families were brought before the Grand Mother, who struck the floor with a snake-headed scepter to signal her approval of chosen candidates. Following this, 7 other children were reportedly sacrificed, their blood used to sign oaths for the chosen ones. The grandmother declared these children as the generation of tomorrow and emphasized their importance to future plans. During the meeting, a figure referred to as the John the Baptist of the Antichrist made an appearance, though the actual Antichrist was said to be either unborn or an infant at the time. The descriptions of the occult John the Baptist align closely with Benjamin Creme. Born in 1924, Creme was deeply involved in the occult and witchcraft from a young age. He claimed that in 1959, he telepathically received a message from his master, a member of the demonic hierarchy. Creme referred to these master spirits simply as the hierarchy, while Christians recognize them as part of the demonic hierarchy. Given that these plans are often laid out well in advance, it would have been fitting for Creme to have been involved in a high-level planning meeting as early as 1955. For further understanding of Creme's Christ, readers are encouraged to explore the article on the Sufis in this newsletter. Regarding the gold bricks laid before the grandmother's throne, there are several reasons why real gold holds significance for the Illuminati. The newsletter may address this in more detail in a future issue. It is worth noting that there have been massive, secret gold shipments from the United States and Russia. One may wonder who is benefiting from these shipments. In the January 1st, 1993 issue of my newsletter, the names of several top Illuminati figures were disclosed. One such individual who could have been included is Robert Moore Collins, 1867, a member of the Pilgrims, a modern equivalent of the Bavarian Illuminati. Collins worked as a reporter and editor for prominent newspapers and served in the Washington and New York offices of the Associated Press, where he primarily focused on political news. He also worked as the chief newsman for Reuters, which is controlled by the Illuminati, and the Associated Press, particularly for stories coming out of the Orient. Although born in Washington, D.C., Collins later resided in Bournemouth, England, and remained unmarried. As is often discovered by those investigating the Illuminati, they exert significant control over the press, and Collins played a role in supporting that control. The January 15, 1993 newsletter delved into the importance of the Satanic Societas Rosicruciana in relation to other satanic groups such as the OTO, Golden Dawn, and Stella Matutina. The Societas Rosicruciana is a high-level, exclusive Illuminati organization. One of the New York officers of this society was James F. Collins, 8 Degrees, who passed away on April 2, 1896. He was part of the original set of officers in the first High Council of the Societas Rosicruciana in America, which oversaw all SR colleges, lodges, across the country. His position was presenter, though the exact duties of this role remain unclear. When the Canadians established a Societas Rosicruciana in Canada, the High Council overseeing all of Canada included Daniel Collins, 8 Degrees, on its council. Daniel Collins held multiple positions on the council, with the highest degree being 9 degrees. If you have read the January 1st, 1993 newsletter or Be Wise as Serpents, you may have encountered the Grand Druid Council, a high-level Illuminati council. In Be Wise as Serpents, in the second section of a chapter entitled Heresy Interlocks with Power on page 8, I listed the names of individuals on the secret Grand Druid Council as of the spring of 1978. These individuals are powerful witches with substantial influence in the world. Yvonne Collins, a traditionalist, was also on the Grand Druid Council. Being a traditionalist means she believed that only individuals born into families with a history of satanic power and witchcraft could be true witches. The Collins family, it seems, has a long history of witchcraft. It is important to remember that many top Satanists consider themselves to have special bloodlines, with some believing they are gods. Even Grande Masters may teach their chosen children that they are the gods who created them. This belief system makes more sense when one understands the methods, mindset, and beliefs of the satanic hierarchy. Yvonne Collins firmly rejected the idea that anyone could become a significant witch through mere training and practice. She believed that a convert to witchcraft could never possess the same level of occult demonic power as someone born into it. Yvonne's occult name, Legina, meaning Lucifer's bride, reflects her position within the dark hierarchy. Living in Virginia, Legina, Yvonne Collins, grew frustrated with Jerry Falwell as he failed to follow her directives adequately. In retaliation, she orchestrated an investigation of his church by the Securities and Exchange Commission, causing substantial financial strain on the organization. Even prominent Christian ministers are said to be expected to follow the directives of the Grand Druid Council, which operates under the alleged control of the Rothschilds. Among those who have left the Illuminati to become Christians, the name Tom Collins is well remembered. Once a member of the Illuminati, Tom experienced a profound transformation and began speaking at churches to expose the truth about the organization. During his speaking engagements, including one at a Baptist church, he revealed critical details about the Illuminati's operations. Tragically, Tom was assassinated in a grocery store parking lot, his death serving as a warning to others. "Remember Tom Collins" is a chilling phrase used to silence anyone within the covens who considers speaking out. Another noteworthy incident involves a Christian man in Olympia, Washington, shortly after Ronald Reagan was elected president. A wealthy couple in a luxurious Mercedes visited him under the pretense of finding a home for their son. The man, impeccably dressed in a suit worth around $800, went to inspect the homes with others, leaving his wife behind to converse with the Christian. During their conversation, the Christian expressed enthusiasm about Reagan's election, to which the woman replied, "We wanted George Bush to get it." Curious, the Christian asked who "we" referred to. She candidly responded, "The Illuminati. We're the enlightened ones, and George Bush was trained by us."
And a lot of information is right there if we scratch below the surface. But they realize that there are very few people like me that are going to be looking in the right direction and scratching under the surface. So, and they don't have time to hide it all. So there is an enormous amount of information out there that relates to these families. And I just am that type of person to plow through enormous amounts of information. That was just, I guess, the gift that God gave me.
So what you're saying then, basically, Fritz, is that the information is out there, and really all you have to do is begin to search for it. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that a lot of the readers, once they have read my Bloodlines of the Illuminati book, and then once they maybe have read some of the other books that I have and gotten a basic understanding of what's going on, they're going to start seeing these things all around them, and they can teach themselves, and they can further their understanding on their own without my help.
Okay, Fritz. Well, let's jump a little bit inside of the book, okay? I know you mentioned as one of the Illuminati families, the Kennedy family. Now, with all of their recent tragedy in the past few decades, how can you still feel like the Kennedys are major contributors to this whole power structure?
There's definitely been some power struggles, and the Kennedys have been on the short end of the power struggles. That's true. But after John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and his brother, Ted Kennedy still was an extremely powerful senator because of his tenure and all of the committees he was on and everything. He was one of the most powerful men in the United States. So that immediate family, you know, continues to be called by the news media as America's royal family. But let's understand that the Kennedy bloodline is far greater than just John F. Kennedy's family.
Well, what do you mean, Fritz? I think most people would, when they think of the Kennedys, they think, oh, well, you had John's father, Jack was it, and he made all his money. Basically, you hear rumors that he made most of his money through Prohibition, and then he made a killing off of the stock market crash. And really, that's when we start to hear about the Kennedys. Are you trying to tell me that they have a history that goes further back?
Yes, they have a history that goes way further back. In fact, the Kennedys are descendants from Brian Boru, who was the first Kennedy, and he was one of the most significant kings in European history. So you see that they're tied back to royalty. In fact, John F. Kennedy's sister married into British royalty. So these are just not commoners that grew up in a log cabin. But there's something that I would point out to our listeners out there in television land, and that is that the movers and shakers do not become rich and powerful and then join the Illuminati. They become rich and powerful because they are part of these Illuminati bloodlines, and their councils decide how they're going to divide up such things as the drug trade.
Before the conversation could go further, the husband returned, visibly enraged by his wife's revelation. He yelled at her to stop talking, and she reluctantly complied. The man then politely ended the interaction with the Christian, handing him the keys and stating that they hadn't found a suitable home. As they left, the husband berated and physically struck his wife for her indiscretion. Such incidents are exceedingly rare, as members of the Satanic hierarchy are meticulously trained to maintain secrecy. Most live respectable lives as a facade, concealing their involvement in satanic rituals, which are committed entirely to memory to avoid leaving incriminating evidence. This level of secrecy is unparalleled, as the Satanic hierarchy operates as a priesthood that wields power over the world by positioning political leaders in key roles. Their influence extends to suppressing media coverage and public exposure of their activities. Members go to extraordinary lengths to maintain their hidden lives, leveraging wealth and connections to national governments, police forces, and media outlets to ensure their security. High-ranking Illuminati members, often billionaires, command resources that enable them to maintain anonymity and control. They will kill or discredit anyone who dares to expose them. If both happen to me, the author, do not be surprised. Remember this: while they can destroy the body, they cannot destroy the soul. Our Christian God reigns supreme. These forces also exert significant control over institutions like the CIA and FBI. Many leading FBI agents have not only been Masons, but have also been involved in Satanism. The FBI has issued reports that, when paraphrased, suggest far more crime has been committed by zealots in the name of God than in the name of Satan. Occult involvement in criminal cases is usually secondary, insignificant, or non-existent. Law enforcement should avoid paranoia and focus only on cases with hard evidence. An unjustified crusade against occult activity could waste resources, harm reputations, and disrupt civil liberties. The irony of such statements coming from the FBI is evident to those aware of their history of trampling civil liberties. The agency has investigated countless organizations simply for opposing the establishment, often ruining reputations in the process. Martin Luther King Jr., for instance. J. Edgar Hoover, a 32 Degrees Mason and known for his controversial personal life and close ties to the Illuminati, exemplifies this duplicity. To explain the secrecy within satanic families, one might compare them to mafia families. Members only learn what they need to know, no more. The top figures maintain respectable cover jobs and communicate orders orally. This comparison is apt, as both the Mafia, or Cosa Nostra, and the Illuminati, or Maria, were shaped by the same occult traditions and secret societies orchestrated by satanic influences. Details about the Collins family, for instance, are rarely discussed publicly. As one of the most powerful Illuminati families, even surpassing the Rothschilds in influence, their story remains largely untold. Insider accounts of secret meetings have provided rare glimpses into their activities, as tangible evidence is nearly non-existent at the higher levels of the hierarchy. Most people dismiss the idea of a satanic hierarchy entirely, despite numerous clues and testimonies. Just as humanity had no first-hand view of the moon's far side before the space age, disbelief does not negate existence. The satanic hierarchy operates with meticulous secrecy, amassing power through rituals, deeds, and worldly influence. While evidence occasionally surfaces at the coven levels, robes, ritual implements, dead animals, and ritual sites, the higher echelons leave no physical traces. They adhere to the principle of balance, ensuring that their good deeds match their evil ones. As a result, some of the world's most prominent philanthropists are, paradoxically, leading Satanists. In contrast, the lower levels are less refined, engaging in crude and often senseless acts of evil purely for their own gratification. The Collins family in particular has been largely overlooked. When people think of the name Collins, they might recall Joan Collins, the celebrated Jewish actress from England. Joan's grandmother lived in Brighton, England, and her father, Joe Collins, ran an acting company with his friend Lord Lou Grade. Joan's grandfather, Will Collins, was married to Henrietta Collins, a can-can dancer, and both were involved in the entertainment industry. In the 1970s, Joan became known as the Queen of Horror Films due to her roles in several horror movies. While she achieved fame, certain films from the late 1970s, which featured explicit content, did not perform as well as expected at the box office. Joan Collins gained notoriety for her boldness and beauty, which set her apart in Hollywood. She became the first older woman to pose nude for Playboy in its December 1983 issue, a collector's item to this day. Even in her 40s, she confidently appeared in the nude, as noted in her autobiography. Her comfort with such exposure may have been bolstered by her exceptional beauty and status as a sex symbol for millions. Fans of Dynasty will undoubtedly remember her iconic role, and others may recall her portrayal of the witch in Hansel and Gretel or her appearance in the film The Devil Within Her. In December 1982, Joan was invited to serve as Mistress of Ceremonies at Prince Albert Hall before Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. Her interests extended to astrology, but her autobiography reveals little indication of religious inclinations. Beyond her striking beauty, her moral flexibility seemed to make her an ideal fit for the Hollywood lifestyle. Joan mingled with notable figures such as Sammy Davis Jr. and Jane Mansfield, both publicly associated with Satanism. She also socialized with influential individuals like Henry Kissinger, vacationed in exclusive locations like St. Moritz, an elite ski resort frequented by the likes of Niarchos and Aristotle Onassis, and spent time with Edgar Bronfman, a member of the powerful Bronfman family, known as a prominent Jewish Illuminati lineage in Canada. While it remains unclear whether Joan Collins is directly connected to the Illuminati's Collins family, her associations with its elite members are undeniable. Joan was married multiple times but consistently retained her maiden name, further cementing her brand. Another Collins of note is Michael Collins, one of the 3 astronauts on the Apollo 11 mission, the first officially recognized moon landing. For those familiar with BYs as serpents, it is worth noting that the first flag planted on the moon was the Scottish Rites flag. The Apollo mission itself and NASA's activities, including alleged connections to flying saucers and a supposed lunar base, are shrouded in mystery. Buzz Aldrin is a Freemason, while Neil Armstrong has retreated from public life. Michael Collins, in his book Carrying the Fire, provides insights into his experience, though he remarks that Neil has dropped out and doesn't sell the NASA program. Collins chose the title of his book based on Greek mythology, referencing the god Apollo, who carried fire, a fitting metaphor for the Apollo 11 mission. Questions naturally arise about whether Michael Collins might be linked to the Illuminati's Collins family. His academic struggles, as he candidly admits in his book, make his acceptance into West Point appear unusual without some external influence. Michael later served on the board of directors for the Illuminati-linked RAND Corporation, which collaborates with the Tavistock Institute. While he does not profess Christian faith, Collins dismisses the notion that his journey to the moon brought him closer to God. However, one statement in his book suggests he may not align with the Illuminati's agenda. He writes, "I feel just as thankful today that I live in the United States of America as I did before flying in space, and I have no desire for this country to merge into a United States of the world." This sentiment sets him apart. If anyone were poised to advocate for globalism or a one-world government without suspicion, it would be Michael Collins, given his unique perspective of seeing Earth as a fragile speck in the vast universe. Yet instead of promoting internationalism, he encourages cooperation to address humanity's problems, an ideal that resonates with many, but diverges from the ambitions of the global elite. Michael Collins offers profound and inspiring reflections on how his experience of viewing Earth from space transformed his perspective on the universe. One of his most compelling insights challenges how we perceive the solar system. He writes, "Seeing the Earth from a distance has changed my perception of the solar system as well. Ever since Copernicus's theory that the Earth is a satellite of the Sun rather than the other way around gained acceptance, humanity has embraced it as truth. Yet emotionally, we still cling to the pre-Copernican or Ptolemaic notion that the Earth is the center of everything. The sun doesn't rise or set, it doesn't move. It simply remains fixed while we rotate in front of it. Dusk doesn't mean the sun goes away from the sky, it means we've rotated 180 degrees into the shadow zone. The sun is still there, sharing the same sky, but a chunk of opaque Earth blocks our view. Everyone knows this intellectually, but now I truly see it." This perspective offers a fresh, grounded appreciation for Earth and the universe. Unlike the mystical and occult narratives that often romanticize celestial bodies, Collins's observations remind us of the marvels of our planet and its place in the cosmos. The Earth, in all its uniqueness, is a miracle, a testament to divine creation. The Collins family legacy. Turning to the question of whether Michael Collins is linked to the Illuminati's Collins family, the answer remains uncertain. Historically, the Collins family is an old New England lineage. Prominent early members include Francis, Edward, and John Collins. Some branches of this family reportedly emigrated from England, where they were involved in both aristocracy and witchcraft. the Collins family's ties to witchcraft date back to the 17th century. For instance, in 1640, a Collins was accused of witchcraft in Aquiday, Massachusetts. In 1653, Jane Collins faced similar accusations in Lynn, Massachusetts. During the infamous Salem witch trials, a Collins family lived in Marblehead, near Salem, and was reportedly connected to the events. Interestingly, some of the surnames of other accused individuals, Young, Bailey, Carrington, Godfrey, Hall, Brown, and Clinton, remain associated with modern-day Illuminati and Satanic hierarchies. A former Illuminati member from the Collins bloodline claimed that the family brought witchcraft from England to America. Prominent figures in the Collins lineage. Throughout history, members of the Collins family have held significant influence. Arthur Collins authored the definitive Collins Peerage of England in 1812, a 9-volume reference on British aristocracy, showcasing his extensive connections and resources. John Collins, 1717-1795, the third governor of Rhode Island, played a crucial role in shaping the U.S. federal government. He was involved in Trevett versus Wheaton, a landmark case that established the judiciary's authority to declare legislative actions unconstitutional. John was a proponent of paper currency and a strong central government, although these views were unpopular in rural Rhode Island. He married Mary Avery. John Collins, 1775-1822, a descendant of a well-to-do branch of the family, served as the 10th governor of Delaware from 1819 to 1822. The Collins family has a long history of wealth, influence, and prominence across various industries. Among its members, one of the wealthiest was Matthew Garrett Collins, 1874-1925, an oil producer whose father was Oliver Cromwell Collins, named after the historical figure Oliver Cromwell, an early Mason known for his role in allowing Jews to return to England after their expulsion. Matthew Garrett Collins himself was a Mason and a successful entrepreneur. He built a thriving silk manufacturing business in just 10 years, growing it into a $2 million operation by 1886. In addition to his ventures in the silk industry, Matthew Garrett Collins was the president of the Interstate Gasoline Company and collaborated with influential figures such as Oklahoma Governor Charles Haskell. He also served as a trustee for Drew Seminary and participated in the Methodist Church. Notably, Tulsa, Oklahoma, where he had significant connections, is often linked to occult and satanic activities, with several buildings allegedly owned by such groups in the area. Prominent Collins family members. The Collins family has produced numerous wealthy and influential individuals, including Theodore Clyde Collins, Jr., an executive in the insurance industry, banker, and president of multiple organizations. Arthur Fletcher Collins, a real estate corporation executive, head of financial institutions, and financial analyst. Henry James Collins III, an insurance company executive and treasurer for several financial organizations. J. Barclay Collins II, an oil company executive, lawyer, and board director for a hospital, among other roles. Leroy Collins, Jr., a banker and director or president of several organizations. John Roger Collins, an aerospace company executive, banker, economist, and trustee or board member of various organizations. John Paul Collins, a banker, director of Rothschild Citicorp Research Corporation, trustee of a hospital, and a leader in numerous organizations. Michael James Collins, not the astronaut, an investment company executive, president of Fidelity Union Life Insurance, Alliance Investment Corporation, and Collins Capital, among other roles. He also served as a trustee for Kira TV and as a board director of the Carr P. Collins Foundation. Interestingly, none of these individuals have been publicly associated with any church, though Episcopalianism seems to be a common affiliation among some members of the Collins family. Historical contributions. The Collins family also made significant contributions to maritime history, building some of the world's fastest and most luxurious ocean-going ships during the 1850s. However, after suffering losses from sea disasters and the financial panic of 1857, they shifted their focus to coal and iron industries. They maintained a residence on Madison Avenue in New York and continued their legacy of affluence and influence. One prominent Collins descended from the old New England family was Atwood Collins, 1851-1926, a Yale graduate of the class of 1873. Another notable line includes Colonel William Oliver Collins, a descendant of Edward Collins, who arrived in Boston from England in 1630. Colonel Collins lent his name to Fort Collins, Colorado, while his son, Casper Collins, who died fighting Native Americans, inspired the naming of Casper, Wyoming. This particular family line, Episcopalian in faith, was well established and influential during its time. Colonel William Oliver Collins, originally a lawyer and later a senator, was appointed a colonel by the Secretary of War during the Civil War. In the Western territories where U.S. troops were dispersed, such a rank carried significant authority. Several members of the Collins family have distinguished themselves in various fields, often sparking speculation about connections to the Illuminati. Below is a summary of some notable individuals and their contributions. Clifton W. Collins. Clifton W. Collins extensively studied St. Simon, a prominent Mason and Illuminatus credited with laying the ideological foundation for communism in the early 19th century. He authored a book titled St. Simon, detailing Simon's life and ideas. Cop Collins. Cop Collins was deeply involved in political affairs, particularly in supporting Republican presidential campaigns. He served as a consultant for federal agencies and held numerous government positions. His diverse career also included involvement with Bahrain Petroleum Company, Limited, during the 1950s, highlighting his influence in both political and corporate spheres. DeWitt Clinton Collins. Born on September 5, 1866, DeWitt Clinton Collins was named after the influential DeWitt Clinton, an early figure associated with the Illuminati in American history. DeWitt pursued postgraduate studies in Vienna and later practiced professionally in Chicago. His family lineage carried the legacy of political and intellectual prominence. Hugh Collins. Hugh Collins gained recognition as the author of Marxism and the Law, published by Oxford University Press. His work contributed to the discourse on the intersection of political ideologies and legal frameworks. James Foster Collins. James Foster Collins was an accomplished individual who worked for U.S. intelligence and the United Nations. A Yale graduate, he held positions such as research assistant for the U.S. Senate Atomic Energy Commission and political affairs officer at the United Nations Secretariat, 1946-1949. He also worked for the State Department and the Treasury Department, possibly continuing intelligence-related activities during his tenure. Jim Collins. Jim Collins focused on topics related to the occult, UFOs, mysticism, and figures like Uri Geller. His writings delve into esoteric and paranormal subjects, contributing to the broader discourse on such matters. John Anderson Collins. John Anderson Collins played a pivotal role in Illuminati-associated plots involving Unitarians, Rosicrucians, and Masons. He collaborated with militant abolitionists like William Lloyd Garrison to promote anti-slavery efforts, which escalated tensions leading to the American Civil War. John was also a socialist and an early proponent of communal living, attempting several experiments in communal societies during the 1840s. His connections to the occult and the Illuminati are explored in works like Fire in the Minds of Men by James Billington. John Churton Collins. A prominent lecturer and author, John Churton Collins wrote extensively about Voltaire, publishing books on the subject in 1886 and 1908. He traveled to the U.S. and Germany for lectures, often receiving favorable media coverage. However, his life ended under mysterious circumstances as he was found dead in a ditch, raising questions about potential occult involvement. Lorna Collins and Virginia Collins. Lorna and Virginia Collins co-authored Levels of Mind in 1984, contributing to the field of psychology or esoteric studies, though details about the book's exact subject matter remain limited. Jones College. A prominent member of the Collins family, this individual was deeply involved in Freemasonry and associated organizations. He served as a Grand Master of the Georgia Grand Lodge of Odd Fellows and was the associate editor of the Georgia Odd Fellows News. He may have also been the editor of Atlanta's Masonic magazine. Beyond his Masonic affiliations, he was a pastor of Friendship Baptist Church, ordained in 1909, and served in this role for his entire life. Remarkably, he resided at the Capitol building in Georgia's state capitol. Paul Valeris Collins. Paul Valeris Collins was a writer and an artist who studied in Paris. In 1927, he interviewed Benito Mussolini for Outlook magazine. He was a Presbyterian and also a Freemason, further underlining the Collins family's connections to secretive organizations. Robert DeVille Collins. Robert DeVille Collins had a distinguished career as a Foreign Service officer and intelligence specialist. He served as the first secretary to NATO, 1973-1976, and later as the director of personnel in the U.S. State Department. His roles included various capacities at the U.S. Embassy in Rome. A devout Roman Catholic, he was awarded a papal honor by the Pope for his contributions. Ross A. Collins. Ross A. Collins, a high-ranking Mason, was noted by ex-Illuminati members for his prominence. A lawyer and former Attorney General, he served as a congressman and chaired the Military Appropriations Committee in Washington, D.C., a position often speculated to be under Illuminati influence. Known for advocating mechanized weaponry, Ross Collins was instrumental in the development of the Flying Fortress, highlighting his focus on advancing military technology. Varnum Lansing Collins. A Princeton University professor and Episcopalian, Varnum Lansing Collins represented the intellectual legacy of the Collins family. Wilkie Collins. Wilkie Collins was a renowned author notable for his works of occult fiction. His writings reflect the mystique often associated with the Collins family name. William Collins. William Collins was the founder of a prominent British publishing firm, which has produced books on British intelligence operations, including MI5 and MI6. The role of the Collins family in occult and power circles. While many Collins family members were accomplished in their respective fields, they are often linked to Freemasonry, the Illuminati, and other secretive or occult organizations. For instance, a Masonic reference book, History of Scottish Rite Masonry in Chicago, lists 12 members of the Collins family as part of Chicago's Oriental Consistory. The Collins name appears frequently in historical accounts related to the occult and positions of power. While some may argue that any surname could yield similar results, certain names like Collins, Gould, and Russell disproportionately appear in Masonic and New World Order literature. This pattern suggests that these families hold significant influence and connections to clandestine networks. Before the Civil War, a branch of the Collins family in America adopted the surname Todd. Numerous individuals with the last name Todd have been associated with occult practices, including prominent figures in secret satanic or witchcraft circles. Notably, 2 U.S. presidents, James Madison and Abraham Lincoln, were married to women from the Todd family. Lincoln's wife, Mary Todd, was known to have an interest in the occult. While the ultimate spiritual fate of Abraham Lincoln is unknown, historical evidence suggests he was affiliated with esoteric groups. He was reportedly a Rosicrucian and a member of the Order of the Lilies Council of Three, alongside Paschal Beverly Randolph and General Ethan Allen Hitchcock. These connections highlight the ties between the Todd and Collins families, with the Todds being considered part of the Collins bloodline by those within the Illuminati. The hidden power of the Collins family. The Collins family is one of the most influential Illuminati families, managing to maintain a low profile while exerting significant power. Some believe they possess greater influence than even the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, or Onassis families. This conclusion comes from both insider accounts and extensive research into their history and activities. The Collins family's connection to witchcraft dates back to their arrival in New England in the 1630s, and possibly even earlier. Some branches of the British Collins family are believed to be of Jewish heritage. The family name itself originated in the British Isles, known as O'Collins in Ireland and Collins in Scotland. A contemporary figure in Wicca, Collins, whose name was originally Collins, exemplifies the family's enduring association with the occult. Notable figures in the Collins family: Sarah Ann Collins. Born around 1730, Sarah was deeply involved in the occult. Despite her family's generational ties to witchcraft, some members sought to abandon these practices. However, Sarah resisted both the rejection of witchcraft and an arranged marriage her father had attempted to force upon her. She fled to Scotland to immerse herself in occult knowledge, eventually becoming a leader in the Elven Path, one of the oldest forms of Wicca. After the American Revolution, she returned to the United States, where she established the first covendom of Wicca. Sarah and her brother were powerful practitioners, and their descendants became the primary branch of the Collins family associated with Wicca and Satanism. Tragically, Sarah was stabbed to death by a deranged woman in a Boston store. The Hellfire Club connection. Sarah's older brother was a member of the Boston Hellfire Club, a satanic group notorious for its sexual occult rituals. Other historical figures, such as Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, were also members of Hellfire Clubs. Tracing the Collins family reveals its extensive involvement in witchcraft and the occult. Sarah Ann Collins was a direct descendant of Francis Collins, the family patriarch who migrated from England in the 17th century. The Todd family appears to have had connections to occult practices, even in the period immediately following the Revolutionary War. For example, John Jacob Astor married Sarah Todd, who was known to have substantial wealth. The surname Todd, while not exceptionally common, surfaces frequently when investigating conspiratorial theories. It is noted that during the Civil War era, the Collins bloodline branched into the surnames Todd and Putman. Interestingly, the Putman family has also been documented as using the alternate spelling Putnam. Genealogical records link the Putnam family to the Collins lineage, further entwining these families with occult and conspiratorial narratives. Historical connections suggest that the Collins bloodline has significant ties to influential families, such as the Phelps family, which became prominent in organizations like Skull and Bones. William Collins Whitney, a pivotal figure in the Collins lineage, amassed a fortune and wielded substantial political influence, becoming the power behind President Cleveland. His descendants intermarried with other prominent families, such as the Vanderbilts and Harrimans, further solidifying their influence. These intermarriages created intricate networks that connected the Collins bloodline to the Rockefellers, the Bush family, and other elite circles. Allegedly, these families played significant roles in shaping global events, such as financing Hitler's rise to power during the 1920s and 1930s. The secrecy and obscure genealogy of these families make tracing their true influence challenging, as practices like adopting children into other families were employed to conceal their lineage. This discussion aims to convey that many individuals with last names different from the top 12 surnames, as well as the variants associated with the 13th bloodline, can also belong to the top 13 Illuminati families. The defining factor is not merely the surname but the presence of occult power within their bloodline. This magical power is critical to their status. If a branch of a family loses its occult influence, its bloodline becomes irrelevant within the Illuminati hierarchy. For instance, although my wife descends from the holy bloodline of the 13th family, her branch has been disconnected from occult practices for centuries, and therefore could never be part of the Illuminati. This article has outlined significant names tied to the early genealogy of the Satanic branch of the Collins family, discussed how these families covertly shape world events, and revealed how the Illuminati conceal their genealogies, often by adopting children under different last names. Isaac Bonewitz, a member of the Illuminati's Grand Druid Council, referred to the leading Illuminati families as famtrads. This term signifies families that have preserved and passed down witchcraft across generations. Bonewitz argued that these powerful families maintained uninterrupted lineage because of their considerable influence. According to him, while isolated pockets of pagan traditions survived under a thin guise of Christianity, the leading families' witchcraft practices were consistent and interconnected. Over time, however, many of these families concealed their pagan beliefs by aligning themselves with movements like Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, spiritualism, and theosophy, which were more socially acceptable. By doing so, they continued practicing occult arts while incorporating external magical traditions, often allowing their descendants to mistakenly view these adaptations as part of their pagan heritage. An example of the Collins family's influence can be traced back to 1770, when Lord Petre, Grand Master of Masonic lodges in the British colonies, appointed Joan Collins as the provincial Grand Master of Quebec. In earlier discussions, we have highlighted how families such as the Astors and DuPonts were involved in Freemasonry during the 18th century. This aligns with Isaac Bonewitz's observations that powerful families often used Freemasonry as a cover to continue practicing witchcraft. By the 19th century, many prominent families transitioned into spiritualism, as seen with figures like the British royal family and Mary Baker Eddy of the Baker family. Notably, H.P. Blavatsky, who was deeply involved in Spiritism, founded the Theosophical Society and launched a periodical called Lucifer in 1887. Her co-editor, Mabel Collins, a medium, or channeler, later parted ways with Blavatsky after a disagreement. It is also speculated that members of the Rockefeller family joined Lucis Trust, an offshoot of Theosophy, along with individuals like Manly P. Hall, whose wife was a Bauer, a name potentially linked to the Rothschild bloodline. Bonewitz's theory suggests a pattern that warrants further exploration, as other influential families likely followed similar trajectories. Among the 13 top Illuminati families, best described as bloodlines, is the Collins family. During the early 1800s, a branch of the Collins family became the Todd family, which remained integral to the Illuminati network. The Todd branch of the Collins family, Hot Toddy and her father, John Todd. Thelma Todd, famously known as Hot Toddy, was a glamorous movie actress with a complex personal life. Alongside her Hollywood fame, she had deep connections to organized crime, notably with mob figures like Lucky Luciano. Todd and Luciano were romantically involved, and Luciano, a notorious figure involved in gambling, drug trafficking, and prostitution, reportedly sought to use her restaurant as a base for his operations. In 1935, Thelma Todd was tragically murdered, her body discovered adorned with $20,000 worth of jewelry. The case was never fully solved, but Andy Edmonds' book, Hot Toddy, 1989, sheds light on the circumstances, suggesting police corruption and cover-ups. Thelma was born in Lawrence, Massachusetts, to John Shaw Todd and Alice Todd. Her father, a former police lieutenant turned politician, wielded significant influence. By 1915, John Todd had risen to prominence as the Massachusetts Director of Public Health and Welfare, a position granting him unchecked authority over contracts, funding, and political appointments. Allegations of corruption surrounded his tenure. Later, as a political advisor in the 1920s, he leveraged his power to promote his daughter's budding film career. Thelma Todd's bold personality and lifestyle earned her a reputation for being unconventional. Known for her flirtatious nature and daring fashion choices, she expressed a teenage ambition to one day run a brothel. In 1925, she won the title of Miss Massachusetts in a beauty contest sponsored by the Elks Lodge, paving her way to Hollywood. However, Hollywood in the 1920s was rife with scandals, including drug addiction, rampant murders, and unorthodox sexual practices. Many actors of the era were involved in criminal activities, and the entertainment world bore deep ties to organized crime. Lucky Luciano, nicknamed Charlie Lucifer due to his fearsome reputation, saw Todd not only as a romantic interest, but also as a strategic asset. Her restaurant provided an ideal location for his operations. Luciano was one of the key distributors of narcotics supplied by the Bronfman family, who, though publicly Jewish, were rumored to engage in covert Satanist practices. In previous discussions, we noted the connections between key figures like Joan Collins, Rothstein, and Meyer Lansky, all of whom were linked to the Bronfman narcotics distribution network. Luciano, another significant distributor, supplied Thelma Todd, also known as Hot Toddy, with drugs. At the time of her murder, Todd's salary was set to increase to $3,500 per week. Luciano, who worked for U.S. intelligence agencies such as SOE and OSS during World War II, was deported to Sicily in 1946. However, even after his deportation, he remained connected to U.S. intelligence operations and Permindex, an elite assassination bureau later headquartered on Paradise Island in the Bahamas. Luciano's associations extended to influential figures like Aristotle Onassis, suggesting deeper ties to organized crime and global power structures. Interestingly, a man named Collins, connected to the Illuminati's efforts to dominate the Australian economy, worked as an executive for H.W. Smith, a company with ties to the CIA, the mob, and the Illuminati. These connections underscore the far-reaching influence of the Collins family within these circles. While I present these clues to encourage further investigation, it is clear that the Collins family's influence is both extensive and complex. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and I'll see you in our next video.